Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's Rei-Lin bringing you another premium tank review. This time it's the last of the premium tanks that you can actually buy in-game from the dealer tree. The 2S14 Zhalo-S, and it's a tier 4 wheeled tank destroyer. I'm going to use the Merc edition here just because I have maximum crew on this one instead of the usual normal Zhalo-S. I wanted to show you just what you'll end up with once you've maxed out your crew and all of your stats and retrofits and whatnot. And if you don't want to listen to me talk about the stats and some comparison shopping here going on with this tank, you can click at the top of your screen and you'll go right to the replays. I actually have two replays for you on this one just because I actually got sent a replay, and it's a PvP replay, so you can get both sides of how this thing plays in PvE and in PvP. So let's jump right into it while they're going off to watch the replays. We're going to take a look here and see what we got. Damage is 339. Now this tank does not get heat shells, and so it gets high velocity armor piercing. So the velocity on this is much faster than normal shells. You can see right there, 1,500 meters per second, which is extremely fast for a tank destroyer and in general any other tank in the game. So you're going to get those shells on target a lot more often, especially if they're moving. But it's going to do 339 damage per shot with 213 millimeters of penetration. That's not bad penetration at all for a tier 4. Now, you're probably not going to go through too many tier 5s or 6s, especially if their main battle tanks are just heavily armored in the front, but you have some good accuracy, and with that kind of velocity, you're going to do pretty well at hitting your weak points, actually, on enemy tanks that you're facing. So it's not so much of a problem with this tank like it might be on some other tanks like the light tanks and whatnot. Damage per minute, 4,075. That's about average, actually. Even though I've got this thing decked out and my stats are reflecting an increase in the damage per minute, that's just still kind of average. This tank doesn't hit that hard for a tank destroyer. Most of the tank destroyers actually in the game don't hit that hard, which is kind of surprising to me. But right now, that's just kind of an average DPM. It's not bad, and it's not great. Hit points, 950. That's also kind of low. If we wanted to make a quick comparison to the other Tier 4 tank destroyer, which I've also done a review on, you will see right here that the AMX 10P Pack 90 has 1,000 health. So it has 50 less health than the Pack 90. And while we got this up, we might as well just compare these flat out. But I'll finish off the stats here. There is absolutely no armor on the Zhalo. This is a tank destroyer, and this is a trait that pretty much all of the wheeled tank destroyers in the game share. They have absolutely no armor, and they have absolutely high top speeds and amazingly high camouflage values. So we'll move right on. The max speed, 81 kilometers an hour. Extremely fast. And it only takes 4.4 seconds to get from 0 to 32 kilometers an hour. This thing can move, and it really does need to be a very mobile platform. And I'll get to reasons why in just a minute. The camouflage, 0.389 across the board. And now with the new camouflage system, you can make that a little bit better by applying camouflage to this tank. View range is massive at 482 meters. You can practically see about a quarter of the map at any one time. So, and you're really going to need it because you do have the low health at 950 and no armor. This thing, it lives or dies by its view range and its camouflage. The gun depression, unfortunately, is kind of bad at only 5 degrees. So it's kind of like, you know, every other USSR Russian tank at only 5 degrees. It actually gets 6 degrees over the rear of the tank. So you have some advantage if you want to face this the opposite direction of where the enemies are, just so if you do get spotted, you can use your acceleration and your speed to push forward out of their line of sight a little bit quicker and get a few extra shots just because you have 1 degree more gun depression over the rear. Turret traverse is pretty good at 45.58 degrees. That's not bad. The reload time is a flat 5 seconds, which is still pretty good. And the accuracy is an amazingly good 0.07. Like I said, you're going to be hitting most of your shots no matter how far out you actually are, whether you're at 500 meters or 800 meters. And for the most part, as long as you can see a weak point, with this kind of accuracy, you have a very good chance of actually hitting a weak point. Whether it's a cupola on top of the tank or a lower plate, even from far away, that's really good accuracy, and I would expect it on a tank destroyer. Targeting time, another positive, 1.86 second targeting time. That's really, really good. That's really fast. And the whole reason why the gun has these stats, again, is because it just doesn't have that much health. It can only take 2 or 3 hits at the most, because it has absolutely no armor. Everything that shoots at you is going to penetrate you. Autocannons are the bane of this thing. Now, the other thing that I will show you right here in the garage is you can see this tank is very, very big. It is a wheeled tog for all intents and purposes. It has absolutely no armor. It sits up extremely high off the ground, and it's very long and wide. It's a very easy target to shoot at once it gets spotted. And that is exactly what you don't want to happen. This thing does not get any kind of smoke grenades. It doesn't get any kind of help in any form of, if it gets spotted, getting out of dodge is the only thing it has for its defense, which is why you have the massive amount of camouflage and the really high view range for the tier. Most enemies will not be able to spot you while you're just sitting there wailing away with your 339 damage per shot. And that's not bad damage for most tier 4s, tier 3s, tier 5s this thing will meet. That's only 4 or 5 shots away, and at 5 seconds you can pretty much keep a tank tracked and in place and do damage all at once with the 213 millimeters of penetration. But we'll do a very quick comparison here with the AMX just to see the big difference, since they are both tier 4, they are both tank destroyers, but of course the AMX is a tracked tank destroyer versus the wheeled. It's also a much smaller tank. You can see the damage between the two. The AMX is doing almost 100 more, but it does have slightly less penetration. But the damage per minute is 2,500 more, basically, than the Zhalo. It has more health. It has more armor, even though the modifiers are a little bit worse. It still has more armor. Not that it means much, because it has no armor anyway. The top speed is not as fast on the AMX, but it does get to 0 to 32 about a second quicker. The camouflage is not as good, 0.28 versus the 0.389. Its view range isn't as good at 450 versus 482, but it does get 8 degrees of gun depression over the front, 3 degrees more than the Zhalo, and the gun depression can really make a difference, especially in PvP. The turret traverse is faster than the Zhalo. The reload time is significantly faster, almost 2 seconds faster. The accuracy is exactly the same at 0.07, and the targeting time is a little bit worse at 2.17 versus the Zhalo 1.86. So as you can see, very similar. Basically, you're giving up a little bit of camouflage on the AMX to have a lot more damage per minute and damage per shot. One thing, though, is the AMX does fire heat and armor piercing, both of which are not as fast. The shell velocity on the AMX, especially with heat, is definitely not as fast as the armor piercing high velocity here that the Zhalo does get. So you can keep that in mind if you have to choose between one or the other. The cost. They're both costing 1,000 gold, which is $5 is 1,000 gold, and that'll get you either one of these. And that is the stats on the Zhalo. Do I think it is worth it? Now, I am kind of on a mixed bag with this tank. I like the tank, and I hate the tank at the same time. I think it's a very good tank destroyer. It does what it needs to do in PvE and in PvP. But with no armor, and even though it does do pretty good damage, it doesn't hit nearly as fast as I think it should for the damage that it's doing. It's hitting almost with the same reload as some main battle tanks, and it's hitting not really any harder than the main battle tanks either. But the main battle tanks have a lot more armor to make up for missed shots or just doing a little bit less damage per shot. This has nothing. If you get spotted in this tank, whether you're in PvE or PvP, you're going to get shot at and really take a pounding. You don't have any smoke. You have no way outside of your mobility and your top speed to get out of danger if you get yourself into danger. And as I said, it's a very big, tall, wide tank. So it's very easy to get into trouble and then get shot several times trying to get out of trouble or into cover just because you're such a large target. But do I think it's worth it? If you really like their gameplay style, if you prefer wheeled vehicles, fast wheeled vehicles, then sure, you could go with this over the AMX if damage isn't the only thing you're interested in. I mainly PvE, that's why I prefer the AMX. It just does more damage faster. It's just a hell of a tank. And So that's what I like. In PvP, the Zhalo is probably a little bit better, simply because it has way more camouflage. You can stay further away from the front lines and end up filling people full of lead before they can ever spot you. And generally, you'll kill them before they can spot you, unless they know exactly where you are. They know where the best spots for tank destroyers are to sit, and they're just going to come at you, or you get lit up by, say, an artillery illumination round. So as far as personal preference, I prefer the AMX, but this is not anywhere close to being a bad tank. So overall, I think it's a good deal if you like this style. If you hate the wheeled vehicles and you're not going to worry about going down the wheeled tank destroyer line at all unless you just have to get some retrofits from them, then give this a pass. Try out the AMX. You might like it a little bit more. But we'll talk here now about the commander and the crew. And as usual, I do use Maximilian. It is a premium tank. I'm trying to get all the free experience I can when I play these tanks, so Max just works out. I would suggest using Sabrina. If you don't have Maximilian, she just gives you more view range, more camouflage, and all of that working together with something like this. The Zhalo already has crazy good camouflage, and she'll just make it much, much harder to detect it, even after you're shooting, even after your camo rating has gone down. Crew. Off-road driving. On all the tanks, off-road driving is perfect. Whether you're going through the water or the dirt, doesn't matter. 10% better acceleration. It does work with wheeled vehicles, and this thing can use the mobility because it just doesn't have anything else for defense. Smooth ride. This thing is very mobile. It's got a lot of top speed. It's got good acceleration. You're going to want to be moving around and taking your shots. You don't really want to sit in the bush, especially with the changes to the camouflage system that came out with patch 0.12. You're going to want to move from spot to spot, or you're risking getting spotted. So smooth ride allows you to take those pot shots between cover, and you can take those shots a lot easier with the Zhalo just because it already has incredibly good accuracy, and you can fire, and with such a high view range, you're probably going to fire and not even be spotted. So this is something to consider. Smooth ride, I think, works good with this tank. Quick draw. This thing has really fast aim speed, about a base of 2 seconds. Aim speed improved by 10%, just makes it even easier to take snapshots, and they're going to be far more accurate, far quicker, so that you don't have to expose yourself for very long and risk getting shot. Shoot from the hip. The minimum accuracy. This is when your targeting circle is as big as it can get. When you're moving, usually this is when that happens. Improved by 20%. This plus smooth ride, in my opinion, makes this thing extremely accurate on the move. If you wanted, you could swap it out, shoot from the hip with marksman, but this thing already has amazingly good accuracy. There's no reason to make it that much more accurate. You're not really going to get as much out of it as you would with shoot from the hip, in my opinion. Ammo, best available. Here we go. This is the only two things you get. You get some high explosive, and this time I did take some 2 rounds of high explosive just in case I decided I wanted a PvP or I needed to decap, and this 213 millimeters wasn't enough to risk losing by cap. I went ahead and took a couple of HE since you don't get anything else but the high velocity armor piercing. So that is preference. Consumables, as always, I got spare parts, energy drink, and medical kit. These are the premium versions of the repair kit and the first aid kit. If you want to save some money, you're just going to take the regular old repair kit and first aid kit. Spare parts gives your entire tank an increase to its repair speed by 10%, which is always useful. Energy drink ups your crew's attributes by 5% per battle, but it's very expensive. And the medical kit increases your crew's resilience to taking damage by 15%, making them very hard to kill, especially if you're using Maximilian as your commander. You could switch out the energy drink for the protein bar, which is half of the same bonus, 2.5% to all crew skills, or you could take the fire extinguisher or the auto fire extinguisher. I don't have a problem with this thing getting caught on fire, but some recent changes that are coming up in future patches it does change the likelihood of getting set on fire by getting hit in the fuel tanks, so that might become an issue where you're going to want to start taking the fire extinguishers. But for now, I don't have any problem with the fires. If you're going to play any PvE, low, mid, or high tier field maintenance kit gives you 20% of your vehicle's health back and all of your ammo. This thing can carry 52 rounds, but since it's only a 5-second reload, you're going to go through a lot of ammunition very quick. You're going to be popping up and shooting, and especially if you're sitting somewhere in the back and taking some good shots and the team is just rolling in front of you and you're pretty much shooting every single time that your reload is up, you can get low real quick on your ammunition. Now, obviously this only applies to PvE, but some of the longer maps like Ghost Hunter or Rolling Thunder, you're going to run out of ammunition by the time you get towards the end of the maps. So you're going to need to use this. And at mid-tier, it costs 12,000 credits. It's really not that expensive to ensure that you don't run out of ammo and can't do anything to help your team. Retrofits. Now I'm going all damage because I feel that a tank destroyer, its main job is to destroy tanks, and it needs to do as much damage per shot as it can. So I take the Mark III Chrome Barrel so that I increase my damage by nearly 5%. Experimental propellant to get 7.5% more damage. That is a must-have for any tank, in my opinion, but especially with tank destroyers. And you get a mobility here. I went with the upgraded transmission because the acceleration is a little bit slow. The top speed is fast enough for me. I mean, there's no reason that I need to go 95 or 100 kilometers an hour in a tank destroyer, whether it's wheeled or not. But I would like to get up to 32 kilometers an hour as fast as I can. So if I have to run away or reposition or juke a shot from an enemy, the acceleration is more important to me when I'm on the move. And that, in a nutshell, is the Zhalo-S. It is a very good tank destroyer at tier 4. It can take on tier 4s, 5s, and 6s. It has a very fast fire rate, but you have to be careful because, as you can see, it is a wheeled tank destroyer. It does play different from tanks that have treads, and thus it can be kind of weird to get used to driving this thing. So if that is something you're interested in, you definitely want to pick this up. For $5, you really can't go wrong. It's a very good tank destroyer for its tier. I just prefer, personally, the AMX 10P90 just for the damage, and I just prefer that style of tank destroyer to this. And also because all the other tank destroyers are wheeled and the AMX is not wheeled, so it's kind of like a little unique bundle to itself. Hopefully in the future we'll see more treaded tank destroyers, but for now you're stuck with the wheels. So if you want tank destroyers, this one will ease you into how the rest of the lines play. And just to show you how these things do play in some combat, I do have a replay for you. I actually have two. Stick around, I'll see you on the battlefield with a couple of replays. The first one's going to be mine with some PvE, followed by our mystery guest with a PvP match. And here we are on the Kodiak map. Another one of the maps that they've adjusted and made some changes to on as far as the enemy spawns go and how the map generally plays out. As you can see, our Scorpion is kind of wondering that himself because we spawn in a different area than we used to. But here we are, and I move up because I know there are going to be some tanks heading for the cab. I completely flub a shot there. I don't know what I was thinking, but it kind of gets the truck out of the way anyway for the rest of my team so they can shoot a little bit more often there with the truck destroyed. So either way, it worked out. I'm not going to get too many shots because obviously I don't have much distance. You're going to be able to see the difference in PvE. This isn't exactly a very tank destroyer friendly map, simply because there's really not that much cover, and it's a lot of city and close quarters combat, which is definitely not where you want the Zhalo to be. You kind of want it sitting 400 meters back in a bush somewhere, using its great camouflage and just sniping the crap out of people. And this isn't exactly the best map for it. But I thought, well, at the very least, if I get in here and die, I can at least get do another map later and maybe get a better replay. But this ended up being a decent game, and the people on my team aren't exactly that bad, but the T-62 on our team really is pretty much the only tank that we have that has anything remotely close to what you'd call armor. And I probably have the best gun of everyone on my team. Generally, you don't want to move up here like this. You don't want to move too far north on this map anymore because it does make these enemies spawn. They can spawn quite a few waves and a lot of tanks, especially if you're playing on hard mode and high tiers. This can be very, very bad. However, this is tier 4, so the highest difficulty I could put this game on was medium. And as you can see right there, 359 damage. It's a good damage roll, and I could definitely two-shot almost anything I come across. So with the firepower that the Zhalo has, I'm a little bit more comfortable in PvE, especially on medium difficulty, of pushing this thing into a little bit worse situations than you'd want to put it in, just because I know I have more firepower than most things that I'll face. Just like that, I can two-shot almost every tank that's going to be popping up. And yes, I noticed that something did spawn behind me, but I saw that a 10p90 had also spawned, and that has a much, much more dangerous gun on it than the Bagel Panzer. I try to just go ahead and take a pot shot there, hoping the shell might, maybe, possibly go through the tail section of that helicopter. It did not. It just destroyed it. I shoot a Jersey barrier there, which also doesn't go through to hit the tank. It just stops. But the Bagel is pretty much just content with sitting there with no gun depression to actually shoot me. Again, I try to take out this 10p90 before he gets any shots off, but I kind of missed. He kept moving forward. I thought he was going to stop. But the bots are getting a little bit better at deciding when to move and when not to move, and can be a little bit tricky. M60 tries to roll up on me, and he has the gun depression to shoot from that hill. But luckily my team had already put some shots into him, and I was able to finish him off. Our team are actually doing really good. Nobody is pushing dramatically up and trying to kill all of these tanks without having cover, which is always a good thing, because a lot of teams will push right up into this area where I am or where I'm shooting at, like right now. And it's very easy if you do that, especially on hard mode, to just get completely surrounded and take fire from multiple directions. And doesn't matter what tank you're in, generally that means you're just going to die. I've played this map before, so I knew there were going to be some spawns up here. And usually there's a couple of artillery that spawn on the A line, like at A5 or 6, way in the back where you can't see them. But this one got the bad luck draw and spawned like literally right in front of me. So I know where he's at, and I'm keeping these guys spotted because my view range is pretty massive. As you can see, I can see almost all the way down to the cap circle right now. This is not something you want to be doing. With no gun depression, you don't want to just be pulling over hills like I just did. However, I felt very confident in my team that we were going to pull a win out of this game, and I just went ahead and took the hit to take out these couple of tanks. I would have killed the artillery, but for whatever reason the shell decided to troll me and hit him right in the tracks and did no damage. I was also getting in a hurry just because I noticed that to get the secondary objective we were down to about 30 seconds, and you lose a lot of experience and money if you don't complete the secondary objectives. And usually it takes you anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds to cap those secondary objectives on this map. So I was thinking we were going to run out of time and we weren't going to finish off the objective. So I rushed forward, took a hit, and decided, well, no more screwing around. We got to get those secondaries. Even if I die, I'm going to get more just from that. Anyway, we got this guy. Looks like a little BMD or a BMP, and he took a couple shots. I was trying to communicate something to my team there. That's why you saw me not really looking at him and driving like an idiot. And so I took another shot that I didn't need to take, but I killed him anyway just because he kept backing away from me, and he has no armor to take anything from me. Now back here along this rock, I like to sit. As you saw, there were some arty shells coming in on me, but he hit the rock. This is a good spot because anything that spawns anywhere where you see me looking right now in that train yard with all the boxes, you can shoot from up here. And anything that spawns literally right there, just like this guy, our friend the M41, you can shoot him just like I'm shooting them now. I'm about to take artillery incoming fire, but he missed, thankfully. But this rock will give you cover from the artillery that do spawn back there, as you see at A5, A7. Now, I couldn't see that artillery. I just kind of took a bead on where I thought the tracer was coming from. And obviously I don't hit anything at all. I didn't think he was hiding behind that truck. But as my team pushes around here, I actually find out that he was, in fact, hiding behind that truck over there. So they do light him up, and if you watch, you'll see one of my teammates take a pot shot and actually hit the wall in front of him. So he was fairly well protected, and even with my view range, you see I'm just outside of where I would have been able to see him anyway. And believe it or not, that is actually all of the spawns. We had such a good team that we have some time here left over, and this is what I wanted you guys to see. In PvE, the Zhalo isn't well suited as it is in PvP, as you'll see in just a minute with the second replay. Just because most of the PvE maps are small, they're only small sections of a larger PvP map. They're close quarters. Just this thing does not want to be doing this kind of style of gameplay as I was doing in this map. A lot of close quarters, a lot of stuff that can easily surround it. Doing a little Dukes of Hazzard there, because it is a big target. It's fast, but it's still big, so the bots have a very easy time of hitting you and making your life kind of suck. So this isn't the optimal, in my opinion, way to play the Zhalo. And it does good. You saw we did just fine. I took a few hits I had to repair, but overall, 3,900 experience, 62,000 credits, almost 6,000 damage. I mean, it's not a bad way to make some money. It's not a bad tank to play in PvE, but you need to be careful which maps you pick. There are a lot of maps out there that are much better suited for this. Perseus, for example. And now we're going to move into our mystery guest. This is Manti. He is in Circonflexes clan on the EU server, and I am extremely jealous of his 10 millisecond ping. So he's obviously got a field of vision change going on his game. That's why it kind of looks a little wall-eyed here. But I actually can understand why he would do it, so he can have a better field of vision. Yes. So he's going to show you, Mr. Manti, how to drive this thing. Now this is obviously before they added the camouflage, so this is not too old of a replay, but it's not the newest patch. But you can see exactly where he's going is exactly kind of where you want to put this thing. You want this thing way far away, where they're not going to see you, and he can put that awesome accuracy just like that and shell velocity to work. He gets a little bit unlucky there. His shell did dip a little. He was aiming for the cupola on top. Trying to get, there you go. See how he's aiming right there? Weak point goes right where he aimed it. Perfect. And he is, you know, a fairly good distance away. He's over 500 meters away on the cupola shot. So, I mean, that's very good. That's just why you want to be exactly where he is. Way back here on the outskirts of your view range, letting your team push up, and you just sniping the crap out of anything they spot. Now, he is a top tier. The most he's facing right now are tier 4s. Tier 4s really don't have much to defend against when it comes to the Zhalo, because the Zhalo just has enough penetration and does enough damage that tier 4s, it's just going to rip them up. They just don't have the armor yet at tier 4. Maybe a T-64 could give him a little trouble from the front, but he has the accuracy to actually hit the lower front plate from as far away as he needs to. So overall, he's probably not going to be too worried about most of the players on the enemy team at this point. He puts in a good shot right there. And you see that he isn't just hanging all the way back. He is moving up with his team, but he waits for his team to get into positions where he's going to be able to take advantage of whatever they're spotting. And then he just tears it up after that. Now, he is being a little bit more aggressive here. He probably feels that his team is a little bit stronger than the enemy team. The scores are even, however, so he's putting a little bit more faith into his team than probably a lot of other people would. But he sees that they're kind of being cautious, and he just goes ahead and YOLOs in. Now at this point, he did get spotted by that guy, and he kind of stays in cover. He waits for that to fade away before he pushes on around and trying to get some more sniping done. And as you can see, there is kind of a pain in the ass with the gun depression, but the mobility and the turning radius and all of that really helps out in this tank. He does try to take a little shot there and goes, oh, that guy can actually see me, and takes a shot on the move. Just barely missed, however. And so now, yeah, he's being much more aggressive. Now he sees that his team is curb stomping, so he goes ahead and just starts to YOLO up. He does get up here and does use some more bushes and trees for some cover to get some camouflage. But his teammate decides not to look where he's going and just does a headbutt, does a little bit of damage to both of them. And now he's in a position to really start laying in some fire on these enemy tanks. And on top of that, it looks like he's getting some spots in on top of that. So he's getting some spotting damage for spotting these guys. And look where he's sitting. I mean, he's in the middle of the map, and he's spotting these guys all the way over there on the 7 line. Now he's got the rear end. Looks like an object 430. Nah? Oh.
Target eliminated.
Nope, it was a T-62. He got a nice hit into the rear end of a T-62, which already doesn't have that much frontal armor to begin with, but it definitely doesn't have the rear armor. He does get spotted here. Yeah, there are some enemies that are still alive that do have some view range. And of course he's not in any kind of cover. I don't know what this guy was thinking, going side on across in front of like 6 enemy tanks, and then continues on just to die for no reason. He was on full health. He might have made at least a few good shots if he'd stayed alive to help his team. Now Mandy just decides, okay, I can go like 80 kilometers an hour. I might as well just go do it. So he just decides, that guy's almost dead. I don't care. We won. There. I'll just kill you. So he runs in. That T-62 didn't stand a chance. There was nothing he could have done. And now we're down to the last guy, and it's the mad scramble from where he was last spotted. Everyone's going to pedal to the metal over there to get that last couple of hits in. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to make it. Yeah, they're already starting to cap. I don't know why you would cap. Honestly, there's only one guy left. Maybe get some cap points. Are there cap points? I don't even know if there are cap points in Armored Warfare. I don't PvP enough to know for sure. But that is it. Boom. Victory. And you can see right here the big difference. 7,500 experience and 294,000 credits he made on that game. And that was a very quick game. And look at the damage that he did. I mean, it's amazing what this thing can do when you put it in the right place at the right time. 3,333 damage. He got nearly 1,400 spotting damage. He did really well in that match. And that's just what this thing can do. Even at tier 4, he made almost 300,000 credits. And so that is another advantage, of course, of the premium tanks. And that was a fairly quick and easy match that he had almost no trouble whatsoever just stomping the shit out of all of those people on the enemy team and supporting. I mean, it's a very supportive tank. Now, had he gotten into a worse matchup where he was bottom tier, things might have been a little bit different, but he looks like he knows exactly what he's doing and where he needs to go on most of these maps, so I think he still would have done well as long as his team helped him out. And that is the Zhalo-S. I think this tank is very good if you like the style of having the wheeled tank destroyers. If you're going to go down the wheeled tank destroyer line anyway, this will definitely ease you in as a very good premium tank to use to get used to that style of play, the weaker gun depression, the size of the tank, the mobility of the tank, and I think it'll serve you pretty well. For $5, like I said, you can't really go wrong. It's just an all-around good tank destroyer. And that is all I have for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got some information out of it that's useful to you in deciding if you want to get this tank or not. If you like the video, please press the like button down below. It really does help me out. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel, there'll be a pop-up coming up on your screen here in just a minute, and you can click that and follow the link to get the latest updates on any of the Armored Warfare content that I put up, and coming soon some more content from other types of games like MMOs, especially Blade and Soul and soon to be Black Desert. Anyway, that's all I got for you people. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.